So, good morning, everybody. I've launched these videos so that you have had the opportunity to understand what it means to take up a business activity while you are studying at universities. And these have all turned into successful enterprises. Before starting our roundtable discussion, I would like to make a brief introduction in order to explain the reasons why we are here, we are around this table. Why should we go about analyzing the phenomenon of graduates, new graduates, entrepreneurship? And why should we go about analyzing the role of universities in this respect? In order to find the reasons for this roundtable, we have to look at general factors, factors that are similar in other countries and factors that are more unique to Italy. First of all, the changes brought about by the phenomenon of globalization and by the so-called fourth industrial revolution are assigning a more important role to the so-called entrepreneurial human capital. The new decision-making contexts and scenarios require higher and higher competencies and skills, and this assumes higher levels of educational attainment. And this is a general trend which is confirmed by a number of different analyses. In the United States, for example, the premium for entrepreneurs has increased more. The earnings premium has increased more than is the case for other graduates. And we have to consider this because in the future, a growing number of graduates will be called upon to engage in an entrepreneurial activity. And this study it demonstrates the difficulties encountered by graduates who have a freelance activity and who could engage in an entrepreneurial activity in order to find a greater level of satisfaction. As far as Italy is concerned, we are trapped in a low level of utilization of human capital knowledge. In 2005, it was shown that having an entrepreneurial system that does not recognize knowledge and skills, we have a university system which, due to cuts in funds, determines the choices of families and households. They are not so willing to make investments in the tertiary education. So we are trapped in this vicious equilibrium, and it's difficult to get out of it, to get out of this dilemma, because incentives of the various players to change behaviors are very low, and hence the difficulty to go beyond this. So there is a issue that is specific of Italy, and the role of universities has to be interpreted in view of this difficulty. And there are also difficulties on the part of students and graduates to access data. We have relied on the AlmaLaurea survey and also on the GEM analysis, a worldwide analysis on entrepreneurship capabilities. It emerges very clear that within the framework of the new entrepreneurs, under the GEM analysis, Italian graduates' involvement is much lower than is the case for other countries. We find the same data in the AlmaLaurea surveys. It emerges that if we monitor graduates 5 years after graduation, then we discovered that only 1.3% of them have an entrepreneurial activity. And this piece of information has to be compared with another important element, because it gives us a signal that the option to engage in an entrepreneurial activity is not considered by graduates. Graduates who declare themselves to be entrepreneurs have a higher level of satisfaction with their job. So just a few take up a business activity and they display a higher level of satisfaction. They also declare that the skills acquired are less effective than is the case for other graduates. And this is something that points to the need to do something in order to obviate these deficiencies. So according to these surveys, there is a very low propensity on the part of graduates to undertake a business activity. And there are some differences according to the area of study. But the general picture is far from reassuring. It emerges that highly educated entrepreneurs will have we have many opportunities in the future, and the country has a lot of space to catch up. So what is the role of universities in promoting entrepreneurship, given the context information I have given to you? Universities don't only aim at promoting entrepreneurship among graduates. They also have to make sure that good employability levels are assured. There is empirical evidence that shows that graduates who went through entrepreneurial training pathways display a higher level of employability versus other graduates because they acquire a proactive attitude. Another important aspect is that graduates who have acquired entrepreneurial knowledge and skills are more entrepreneurial once they join an organization and use this set of skills and attitudes. They can better contribute to the technological and organizational change of the organization in which they operate. Another aspect which should motivate a support of graduates in entrepreneurship activities is that this can be a powerful instrument in promoting the transfer of knowledge within the economic system. At this stage, after defining the framework within which a university-wide intervention is motivated, the question is, what can we do in order to lower the barriers that limit access to entrepreneurship? According to a recent survey, and based on the AlmaLaurea date, if the share of graduates who become entrepreneurs is low, the share of those graduates who have expressed an intention to become entrepreneurs is higher, and this measures the potential supply of entrepreneurs, and the universities should act on this pool in order to promote access to business creation and entrepreneurship. I hope that I have sufficiently justified the decision to hold this roundtable. So my proposal now is to hand over to the participants of this roundtable, starting from Antonio Davola. He has a PhD at the Davola school, and he's the founder of the ALES Tech project. So please tell us about this endeavor, this adventure. Then I will hand over to Gino Gandolfi, the delegate and representative of the University of Parma. He will report on the Parma University experience, and he will also report on a success story. Tiziano Tassi, a Parma-based entrepreneur, and then Marco Galvagno, the head of the Contamination lab based in Catania, and he will report his experience and the philosophy underlying the Contamination Lab. It's surely and certainly a best practice that should be extended to the whole university system. And last but not least, Mr. Antonio Carta. He will give us his perspective on the startup and new entrepreneurship phenomenon. So first of all, Antonio Davola with his presentation.
Perfetto. Grazie mille, Francesco.
Thank you very much, Francesco, for your introduction. Thank you for inviting me to share with you my experience, the experience I've undertaken together with my companions. Its name is Alestec. Alestec is an innovative startup company that operates in the transportation system, in the transportation sector. It's focused in the design and the construction of mechatronic control systems for dynamics controls and vibrations dampening. It's a young startup. Its team is equally young. The company was set up about 1 year ago, and it's entirely made up of students who are new graduates of the University of Pisa. As far as the competencies are concerned, the core of the company is made up of engineers, but besides this, there are other members engaged in different activities. As far as I'm concerned, I am in charge of the legal office. This team was formed following a challenge that was submitted as part of the Hyperloop project. Hyperloop is an innovative means of transportation. Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla, designed it. And according to Elon Musk, this vehicle should be used together with traditional vehicles, so cars, trains, planes, and vessels. The underlying idea of Hyperloop is a train, a magnetic levitation train, similar to the one that has already been implemented in Japan, for example, a train that travels inside a tunnel where a controlled pressure atmosphere is created so that the train can reach speeds that would be impossible with traditional vehicles, 1,200 kilometers per hour. This is the speed that can be reached and would be able to cover distances, long distances in a very short time. You may think it's a futuristic project, but actually this project is progressing at high speed. Last January, we conducted early tests with prototypes on a 1:2 scale. They've traveled in a controlled pressure tunnel, and they have been able to achieve the planned speeds. Elon Musk has asked students to form teams and to design technological solutions to be applied to this transportation system. At Alestec, we have not focused on the entire Hyperloop system. This would have been an impossible enterprise given the low number of resources. So we decided to focus on a specific component of the system, a critical component, that is to say the suspensions system. This has been our area of focus. We have designed a suspension system for high-speed vehicles that can guarantee both comfort and safety even when traveling at these high speeds. In order to do this, we have set up a startup company, and we have developed networking with other university teams working on the same project. We have liaised with these universities, the ones reported on this slide. Why is it necessary to work in conjunction with other university students and teams? First of all, to pool knowledge on this high innovation profile, and also because the Hyperloop project, which is the developing project, revolves around three possible types of vehicles: an air levitation vehicle, a magnetic levitation vehicle, and an air vehicle. And we have developed systems that can support these three types of levitation in collaboration with some US universities. Here you see the operation of the suspension system. As you can see in the video, the train does not touch the ground. It's suspended from the ground, and this reduces friction and makes it possible to reach very high speeds. There has been a considerable evolution in the project. With Alestec, we were able to pay a visit to the United States. We made a presentation in California at an event organized by Elon Musk. This was the official presentation of the project. And the project is continuing now. After developing a tested product on a disruptive technology such as Hyperloop, we have tested the ability to apply this technology to existing systems, high-speed trains, or the automation market, electric cars, a suspension system that can guarantee safety to a train traveling at speeds of 1,200 kilometers per hour, can also provide benefits to other technologies, to existing transportation technologies. And this is something we are exploring. There is another project which we recently presented, and this is a complementary technology to the suspension system. It's a levitation technology. It was recently presented to the public, and we are in the process of carrying out validation tests. What is the idea behind this round table? Francesco already touched upon some of them. In this last year, the university has been a primary reference entity for us, and there have been lights and shadows in our relation with the university institution. I am a student, a doctorate student, and universities provide both negative and positive aspects to a student wanting to engage in an entrepreneurial activity. The university system provides very positive guidance referring to networking opportunities, the possibility to connect entirely different entities. At the beginning, however, setting up a business requires interoperability among the various involved entities, and requires a wide range of different competencies. Universities can play a role in establishing these links so that university students and graduates can meet and team up and set up a business, an a company. And universities can also be a place where competencies can be validated. Alestec is a spin-off of the university, and professors have supported us in the project, and this support is very important when it comes to assessing the validity of a technology which is still being developed and designed. I would like to close on a negative note, though. Much remains to be done when it comes to universities' abilities to provide effective support to students who want to engage in an entrepreneurial activity. And I would like to emphasize the significant difference between the skills and competencies supplied in the degree course and the skills that are actually requested for an entrepreneur. And these skills are less professional, less theoretical. And what is required is flexibility, a flexibility in addressing problems, a skill that universities do not convey and do not focus on. There is one last aspect to remark. The university system does not promote the concept of entrepreneurship at the conclusion of the studies. The options that are promoted are a freelance activity or the possibility to work in the research field. But research can be used for an entrepreneurial experience, so that the universities have a role to play when it comes to bringing together research and business and entrepreneurship. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Antonio. I would like to hand over to my colleague, Mr. Gandolfi.
Good morning, everybody. As was said by Professor Ferrante, our chair, I will make a presentation together with Dr. Tassi, who's sitting here to my left. I will briefly tell you about the experience of the University of Parma. I thought of explaining past and future projects to you, but in the light of the previous talks, I would like to change gears a little bit. I'd like to start off by telling you about two success stories. One is linked to the presence of Tiziano Tassi. By the way, this will be a four-handed presentation. Well, if one note is off tune, it's because we have not prepared the talk, and certainly it's my fault. But we will try to hide this in a way. So it's a success story at the University of Parma. The university has always tried to stimulate entrepreneurship in the form of university spin-offs and startups, on account of the reasons that were mentioned by the previous speakers. Of course, we have scanty resources, and I have to remind you of this. In spite of this, let me tell you about the story of a university spin-off, which was very successful. We have a video with us, but we can't show it. It's called VisLab. Not being able to show you a video, I will try to outline a few points and convey a few feelings to you so that you can appreciate how extraordinary and amazing this project is. It was developed in 2009 on the initiative of Professor Broggi, a teacher at the University of Parma who was also a student at the same university. His vision was to imagine a car of the future. And here we're back to the theme of transportation. a self-driven car. An artificial lab was developed in 2009. The university spin-off was established. Over the years, it proved to be successful, winning a series of international competitions. Self-funding was possible. And then in 2015, this initiative, which was still successful, started experiencing some difficulties. Why? Because the business model itself was questioned. In other words, the financial resources were not there, and there was no acceleration for development. At this point, the university, which was a 5% partner in this spin-off, started playing a role. Different solutions were explored, and at the end, M&A was the road taken. The shares were sold to Umbrella, an American multinational. But, that's not the entire story. Well, if I stopped here, it would be the story of one of the many startups in our country. What is amazing about this? First of all, the numbers. Where the university had a 5% share, they had paid in 500 euros, and thanks to this operation, the university cashed more than $2 billion. And this would be enough to promote other initiatives, but that's not the whole story. The most amazing part comes now. Bravely enough, the university, the board, the rector, etc., decided to retain this startup here in Italy, in Parma more precisely. Initially, it was not easy to convince Californians to retain it in Italy, but after some discussions, the decision was made to keep the startup in operation in Italy. Not only the new shareholder hired all people that were working in this startup, then doctoral degrees were funded and other people were hired. VisLab and Umbrella will be the European research center of this multinational company, and it will be based here in Parma. I like presenting this case study. It's a success story. I agree with you that our goal as teachers is not just to convey information, but allow students to learn through successful business cases. Another successful story is that of a startup called Caffeina. It was established in 2011. There's a very nice article published in Corriere Economia early in May this year, where it is stated that following the Financial Times ranking, where you have the companies with the fastest growth in Europe, from 2012 to 2015, well, a digital agency called Caffeina ranks first. Caffeina was established on the initiative of a former student of mine that I'm very proud of. That's why he's here. I'd like to thank him because he could find the time to come here today. He can certainly tell about his story better than I can. So it's a company that ranks first. I'd like to embarrass him because the revenue growth rate was plus 1,092%. 1.63 million revenue is the turnover of this company. Now the floor to Tiziano. Thank you very much, Professor Gandolfi, for your kind introduction, and thank you very much for having me here. Perhaps I'm disappointing you now because you've heard about success stories. Caffeina can be considered as a successful case story, but we don't consider ourselves as successful. We think we're trying to reach success. Well, we look at the example of Vislab with great admiration, because what they achieved is really something amazing, extraordinary. We're trying to do our best. We're very pleased to be acknowledged in a certain way, but we're very far from having attained and accomplished our goal. There's still a long way to go. As Professor Gandolfi said, Caffeina was established at the end of 2011. Let me give you some information about us in order to put things in a context. I think that personally, I have drawn some important insights from our pathway. We, and I've got two partners, Henry and Antonio, who studied with me here in Parma. We left certain jobs. We left also the possibility of career development with L'Oreal and Procter & Gamble. We were working in Milan and Rome, respectively, in the headquarters of these multinational companies, which are true marketing schools. And we returned to Parma, the city where it all started, and we created Caffeina. It's a creative digital agency. What we do is propose our ability, our know-how, our consultancy to brands, to companies that feel a need to understand the major changes brought about by the digital world in the lives of everybody, to communicate better, to provide better services, to differentiate their business model thanks to this opportunity offered by change. To give you some examples, we create websites, we create apps for mobile devices, but we also create communication campaigns which reach out to tens of billions of people thanks to social media in Italy and the rest of the world. We're doing this with vertical competencies and skills within organization. Well, this organization relies on a philosophy that was transmitted to us at the time of university. Be prepared for the unexpected. Be ready to work in a world which is rapidly evolving, rapidly changing, a world where nothing is mechanical, slow, and predictable as it used to be, but everything is fastly moving. And we do not really have foundations for making predictions. Ideas never sleep is our claim. Ideas are what we do, what actually characterizes us. We have no machinery, no raw materials, but the skills of our people that we train within a pathway of growth. Never sleep is the way in which we work. In these past 5 years, the results were amazing. Recognitions and acknowledgements such as that of the Financial Times is highly rewarding to us. Let me give you some more information to put Caffeina in a context. It's the staff is 70, more or less. Everyone is based here in Parma, except for some people in Rome, from 8 different countries, 8 different nationalities. We need to understand cultures that are different from the European cultures and the Italian culture. Last year, the turnover that was reported by the Financial Times increased up to 3.5 million. So thanks to the ability of my team, thanks to the ability of these 70 people, we were able to grow even more. Now, these results were possible, and this is the truth. You can find our whole story on YouTube, where everything was possible thanks to the School of Economics or Department of Economics, where with my 2 partners, When we were at the School of Economics, we decided not to limit ourselves to studying. We decided to get some experience, practical experience. So we founded the first university web TV, which was available on YouTube way back in 2007. Then Google told us it was the first in the world ever, together with Stanford and MIT, with quality contents. It was highly satisfying to us. Well, this was possible because within the university setting, many professors, many teachers were open and ready to listen to us. We had no beard, we were too young, we were not even finely dressed, but we were willing to do something. We submitted all these projects to the university. There were lots of unknowns. You know, the manager who comes as a witness, will he be ready to say something? Maybe this will spoil the relationship with the other enterprises, with the other businesses. Well, is it better to call someone from the business world or from the institutions to hold the lecture through the web TV? Well, there were many unknowns, but the university allowed us to experiment, to try all this. They told us, and you know, I can tell you, they told us use whatever you can to develop your projects. Of course, it was a not-for-profit effort. We wanted something useful to the whole community of students. Within the activities that we launched through the web TV, our return was simply gaining experience. Well, the idea was interviewing businesses of excellence with the possibility of explaining about entirely or projects that were entirely developed by them. And thanks to this, we were able to understand that we could do something different apart from working in a multinational company and trying to follow the manager's career, which was the dream of any student of business and economics. We thought that maybe we could also launch our own business. We could create something from scratch. And be sure, it was a very difficult task. We started out with 2 people plus us 5 people in November 2011 or December 2011. We had an office with just 2 rooms on the outskirts of Parma. And the capital that we had was just our savings. It was the result of jobs made even at night. We started out with 25,000 euros, and this capital just allowed us to pay the people that were working with us and who believed in the project. And from then on, we started along a trajectory where we made many choices and decisions. Some of them were right, others were wrong. But I think that we took some more right decisions than wrong. And today we are what we are. I'd like to close now with just 2 points. To me, the role of universities in our experience was to convey not just notions and theory, which are fundamental though, but also giving us the possibility to experiment, to try and do things. I think this practical experience is unavoidable independently of the job that you want to be in. And I was very happy to have this opportunity. Should I tell you about the lesson we learned in our experience? Well, I can't explain what our market is about. It's highly competitive, though. We're lucky enough to work with big brands, multinational companies, global projects. We have to compete with competitors that have 5,000 headcount, not 70. They have major skills and maybe 80, 100 years of heritage behind them. Being able to compete with these people from Parma, and we're based 300 meters from here, or being able to compete from here shows that if you have strong ambitions and if you are willing to grow and put great commitment to this, it is not impossible to achieve something. It's difficult, but not impossible. And to us, the opportunity played a fundamental role. Thank you.
Ora chiudo con un minuto. Volevo mettere in
One more minute to close, because I wanted to embarrass him, but he has embarrassed me. So just 1 minute to tell you something. We hope that these two extraordinary examples will not remain two notable exceptions. As far as what are the actions ahead, I would like to mention two projects, one being the Learning in Action project and the second being the Contamination Lab project. The idea is to continue to transfer this essential concept and to spread the concept of entrepreneurship. We want to involve important stakeholders, starting from institutions, businesses, managers, professionals, foreign and Italian universities. As part of our project, and we hope that the ministry will approve it, there is also the involvement of the Catania University, and we are all curious to hear about the Foundation Lab experience of Catania directly from our University of Catania representative, Mr. Marco Galvagno. Thank you, Gino. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having introduced me, and thank you to AlmaLaurea. I don't want to disappoint you, Gino. These initiatives are doomed to remain very few, because I will expand on those graduates who do not set up new businesses. New businesses account for 1% of people in a working age, and this is true all over the world. We can do very little to further improve this percentage, but we can enhance graduates' entrepreneurship so that they can engage in other types of activities. And this is what we do at the Contamination Lab. The Contamination Lab project, and I'm speaking specifically of Catania and other South universities. This is a project that is being funded by the ministry at the experimentation level. It teams together students coming from various departments, and their cross-disciplinary skills are exploited, and they are also motivated to engage in projects together. There are 8 contamination labs across Italy. There are 4 such projects which are privately financed. They've not been funded by the ministry. They are located in other areas of Italy. And as Gino said, there is a tender process. After the first experimentation, the contamination lab will be extended across Italy, and the number will grow. Within the contamination lab, we select about 100 students per year. Since the beginning, we have achieved about 2,000 students who have benefited from this. And we provide training on entrepreneurial skills and cross-disciplinary attitudes and skills. We don't select students who have a precise idea of a business. We select students who want to engage in an experimentation, and we bring them together in order to come up with a business project. It is not necessarily a new business. It must be a common project. I would like to speak about the peculiarity of the Catania Contamination Lab. All contamination labs have as an objective the number of startups they found. But for us, this is not a parameter. We put a zero besides the number of startups. We led to 2 startups in Catania, but there is also a contest which collects business ideas, supports people in the definition of a plan. What we do is to convey entrepreneurial skills in a very broad sense. We provide cross-disciplinary skills and competencies because they are very important for us. What is meant by cross-disciplinary skills or soft skills? While hard skills enable you to carry out a particular activity, soft skills can enable you to do all the rest. So they are much more important. When speaking with the Contamination Lab students, I say, whatever you do at the end of this pathway, you will have a additional set of instruments. And the unique cycle graduates have already been targeted for a profession. And they get crazy when they are in our contamination lab because they discover that there is something else they can do. We encourage students to work in team, to establish relations, to work within specific timelines, and we train them to devise ideas, to develop them, whatever these ideas and concepts are. My personal contribution to this discussion is not all people can do entrepreneurial business, but they can all develop an entrepreneurial attitude. And in order to achieve this, we must enhance the entrepreneurial training in Italy. Before coming here yesterday, I made a very short search. I searched the website that brings together all the various degree courses in Italy, and I've identified the IT 3-year degree courses. 45 such courses have been generated, and I've tried to identify the credits of the so-called Area 13, Economics, Management and Statistics, and I found just 95 credits, which means 1% of the total. Of this, the management entrepreneurship area accounts for 50% from just half of the 95. And this is a cultural problem. Besides a foreign language, the native language, maths and sciences, entrepreneurship is an important skill which has to do with the entrepreneurship, with the initiative and resourcefulness. But they are considered as being inborn, as being spontaneous skills. So what happens in universities? There are no management and entrepreneurship courses, even at the management department. On the other hand, there are many language courses. So there is a discrepancy here in terms of managerial competencies and training for entrepreneurship. So these competencies are of secondary importance in universities. So we have to introduce them in all faculties if we are to achieve results. And we may be able to answer some questions if we had such skills. Why do young students not continue with university studies. We should investigate what happens after the university pathway, but also during the degree courses. Degree courses are too specialized and they don't provide training in these soft or cross-disciplinary skills. My proposal, and this is the conclusion, and this is my subjective conclusion, so is to disseminate this transversal training and to introduce entrepreneurial training in our universities because this will contribute to the creation of new businesses. And we should increase the number of hours, of training hours in subject areas such as business creation, entrepreneurship. This could contribute to improving the employability of our graduates. If a physician or a pharmacist has the opportunity to learn the skills that we teach at the Contamination lab, then these students and graduates would have more opportunities on the labor market. And AlmaLaurea should also include in the survey the fact whether having soft skills plays an important role when it comes to finding a job after graduation, and also when it comes to the quality of the job. So that's all as far as I'm concerned. So my best wishes for Parma for having funded the Contamination lab. I hope that there will be 90 or more contamination labs in Italy. Just one more thing before finishing. We have seen in Catania that the Contamination lab should be introduced in all universities. We must extend the number of students who get this opportunity. But in order to achieve this, we should change the mentality and attitude of my colleagues, of other professors. When I ask professors to allow their students to attend the Contamination lab, I often meet with a resistance and reluctance to do so. So this is what I mean when I say that we have to change the mentality of the faculty. Even if the management board decided that this is an important subject, many degree courses still find it difficult to validate it because it's not in line with the training results. But we answer this consideration by saying that this subject is in line with any degree course. So let's get out of the university setting and let's move to the representative of the business world. He will give us his his perspective. So what do you think about this phenomenon? It would have been interesting to see the presentation that you prepared on propensity to entrepreneurship and to see the results of this survey broken down by faculty and subject. In the last 15 years, we have seen the emergence of different opportunities for graduates. If we look at the last 15-year period, and there is much talk about startups, but we have always had startups. I myself represent a startup company which was established a few years ago and which has reached 50 million euros of revenues. But in a period in which the situation was not as favorable, I founded this company. We have seen two significant examples of startups. Startups are prevailing in the world of information technology. Italy is by tradition a manufacturing country. So we may ask this question from a different perspective, which is the following. The world of IT technology offers the possibility to engage in business activities using a very low level of resources, just with your own competencies and skills, with a PC and with some calculation resources on Aruba or Amazon. You can build a prototype or a model that you can offer to businesses and companies. So the resources which are needed to start up a company in the IT sector is very low. If we consider what it takes to start up a company in the traditional sector of mechanics, of course, the investments needed are of a different scale. And as far as the university world is concerned, the main issue is raising sufficient funds to experiment with new projects. In a country where, in order to get credit from banks, you have to demonstrate that you don't need money, there are sectors which are more advantaged than others. And I'm referring to those sectors which require large-scale investments. And this is a topic we should discuss. On the part of enterprises, there is usually a willingness to consider new developments and innovative ideas. In the past, we have not seen sufficient contamination and integration between the university and the business world. This lab has been a very interesting and successful experiment. And I think that we should make ideas and innovations available and accessible to the world of business entrepreneurs, to those who could make some investments. Every time that I think of this, I'm reminded of the story of Google. I don't know if you know it, but in fact, two master degree holders had come up with an interesting method to use links. And the rector of the university, of the Stanford University, said, "Okay, that's interesting." And he called the managing director of Sun Computer, a $10 billion in revenue company. And this CEO paid heed to the two students. So I hope that this can happen in Italy too, to shorten the distance between entrepreneurs and students. If you have an innovative, creative idea, you will get the attention of businesses. And I think that we should work hard in order to shorten this distance and to remove the barriers. It's not sufficient to have good ideas to set up a business. I was 26 years old when I got the degree. I opened my business when I was 27 years old, and I can assure you that the first years turned out to be a nightmare. I had no skills whatsoever. I could not manage a company. I had to learn everything from scratch. Then there was the illusion that you could set up a business just using an Excel spreadsheet, and that you can grow on the basis of nothing. And this is another excess. But we should go back to reality. We should bring together innovation and entrepreneurial skills. But in order to achieve this, we have to provide resources so that we can stimulate and encourage innovation coming from students and graduates, young graduates.